Hello, I'm George Lewis, and I'd like to thank Torbjörn Tunder Hansen for inviting me to be with you today. Although I regret that I cannot be with you in person for this very first concert of Ultima 2020, I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone. I hope that in the next few moments I can provide a helpful and hopeful message that will resonate throughout the festival and after. I'd like to present a few observations about the new opportunities offered by the international Black Lives Matter movement, as well as the crisis landscapes created by COVID-19. In the wake of the ongoing pandemic, many of us have not only contended with the absence of concerts, but also with the loss of life, livelihood, housing, and income. Nonetheless, musical life has found a way to survive and innovate through online performances. Now, in New York, where I live, I don't go out that much right now, so I'm very pleased to see Europe and Scandinavia gradually and cautiously opening up to concerts, which we in the USA are still not really able to do. I'm hoping that we can get back to holding those concerts soon, although a change of government might be required to really make that work. In 1918, American literary critic Van Wyck Brooks formulated a novel approach to the search for the historicity of American cultural identity. If we need another past so badly, Brooks wrote, is it inconceivable that we might discover one, that we might even invent one? This influential notion of the usable past can be extended to consider the international heritage of contemporary music, whose current usable past is, as the Ultima Festival's 2018 narrative put it, a platform for representation of white male composers and performers. At Ultima in 2018, Rolf Erik Nystrom and I conducted a diversity lab. Through improvisation, we explored how music could become a core expression of diversity. But diversity discourse, despite the progress it has made, may have reached its peak. The field of new music needs to move to the next stage of the evolution of its identity, moving beyond its Euro purity obsession toward creolization, by which I understand a hopeful approach to how contemporary music can become a real-world music. Well, we're all familiar with the baneful binaries so often invoked in response to demands for greater and more diverse representation, quality or inclusion, musical value or identity politics. These supposed conundrums ignore the fact that identity and invocations of a usable past have always been central to music. Wagner's mythical Walsung tribe, Schoenberg's proclamation of a method that would assure the superiority of German music for the next 100 years, or Julian Carrillo's search for a microtonal 13th sound. But now, you and I need to invent a new usable past, a new identity that understands contemporary music not as a globalized pan-European sonic diaspora, but more like the blues, practiced by the widest variety of people in many variations around the world. We need a creolized, mosaic identity that recognizes historical, geographical, and cultural cross-connections, not so much to achieve diversity as to pursue a new complexity that promises far greater creative depth. An Oslo journalist asked me if I was going to address Black Lives Matter in my talk to you today. Well, it is true that despite the fact that Afro-diasporic composers of contemporary music active after 1960 have created an awful lot of crucially important work, a cone of silence hangs over them in terms of attention from curators, music historians, and critics. Well, what accounts for this? We can consider musicologist and composer-pianist Dana Reason's powerful notion of the myth of absence, which she used to summarize her finding that lack of press coverage and festival programming of the works of women leads to the more or less automatic assumption that women are not present in the field in sufficient numbers to really matter. One can also understand the myth of absence as emblematic of what Sarah Ahmed calls a kinship logic. Indeed, in music, genre and kinship often co-present, and assumed homologies of race and genre actually affect what we're able to hear. In fact, one of the major musicological scholars on this topic right now is your Norwegian countrywoman, Nina Sund Eidsheim from Trondheim, now at UCLA, and who is also a soprano trained in the Nordic classical voice tradition. Here, we can compare contemporary music and contemporary art in terms of outcomes since 1996, a watershed year in the visual arts with the advent of Documenta 11, where the late Nigerian Okwe Nwezo became the first non-white curator of this famous art festival. As Anthony Gardner and Charles Green saw it, Documenta 11 painted a picture of contemporary art as a network in which New York, Lagos, London, Cape Town, and Basel were more or less equally important to a contemporary canon, and similarly crucial in understanding contemporaneity itself, as opposed to some centers being exotic margins and others more genuinely cosmopolitan and contemporary. There is no reason why festivals and other important institutions that support contemporary music could not do the same. The composer-pianist Muhal Orchard Abrams, co-founder of the important Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians, once said, "We know that there are different types of Black life, and therefore we know that there are different kinds of Black music, because Black music comes forth from Black life." So I want to affirm not only that Black lives matter, but also that Black liveness matters in new music today. But there are still absences, and these are not mythical. Women of all ethnicities and races are still vastly underrepresented. Here, myths have real effects, and when young women do not see themselves, one cannot blame them for deciding that this field is not for them. A representational exclusion combined with actual exclusions of creative minds and bodies leads to real absences. But we cannot simply concentrate on gender alone, as so many well-meaning diversity initiatives do. When race and gender intersect, perhaps Black women become revealed as the least represented of all. So if you don't like identity politics, you could give identity erasure a try. Some among you listening to me now have never experienced this. Others know it all too well. The last in-person concert I attended was Elaine Michener's moving work on chattel slavery, Sweet Tooth, at the Borealis Festival in Bergen on March 6th, where she met with VUMA, an organization of Norwegian people of color who are prompting and promoting diversity of involvement in the arts. This initiative reminded me that among the children of migrants being born right now, there are going to be composers writing a new sonic chapter in the history of the country and the world, knowing, as the philosopher Arnold I. Davison does, the true promise of diversity. Multiplication of perspectives means multiplication of possibilities. What keeps us from realizing this promise? A blockage of consciousness is probably the greatest obstacle. The prosthetics of inclusion must give way to a new incarnation of who we are. If we embrace that future, even with all its turbulence, if we can place ourselves conceptually in the situation of a Creole, we will witness the emergence of a new, mobile musical subject that can affirm our common humanity in the pursuit of new music. I wish everyone a wonderful, socially distanced, and diversely decolonized Ultima 2020. Thank you very much.